Hi, this is Pam, founder of Tilt365, and we are often asked about what are the outcomes I can expect if I use the Tilt framework and suite of talent development assessments with our company and in our culture. And of course, our big picture answer is that you're going to be building a really healthy culture where counterproductive office politics are very unlikely to occur. The reason is because of the self-awareness and growth in character intelligence and the understanding of how to kind of catch yourself before you engage other people in a way that's going to take them away from being productive and creative and innovative. But more importantly, we think we attract the technology, the tech industry, and also the science industry because of our science and because of the nature of whole person development with the Tilt framework. And one of the principal concepts behind that is what we call the 12 agilities and the polarities of the experience and phenomenon of flow. So I want to tell you a little bit about that today. On first glance, this model may look a little bit complex for you, but it contains everything that a team needs to be thinking about in order to be what we call generative. And if you look at the model, you can begin to see that everything on it is a polarity. So for example, looking at inspiration and focus, you might think, well, it's a good thing to be inspirational and have a compelling vision, but it would be aimless if it didn't also have focus and clear, selective top priorities. And likewise, if you didn't have your top priorities clear and your focus clear, then you might not be very inspiring. So the two have a relationship with the other. And so when we're looking at this model, very often the inspiration is the mission, where we're headed and the great idea that we have about the future. And if you move over to the right for the why, that future state is expressed here through creativity and confidence in a different future. And so that needs to be clarified for any team and for any company culture. And engagement happens when the future state is very clear and people are engaged with it. So they are excited and passionate about it. And they also understand the mission and metrics that need to be tracked so that we can see that we are tracking toward that future. So the what is, of course, your balanced scorecard or your metrics that you're looking at every day that help you stay engaged with that future state. Looking at the learning axis, it isn't enough just to have engagement in a company. You also have to have people have to be challenged and really learning all the time, or else they get bored or start creating office politics instead of doing what they are excited about doing. So people also have to be learning, or else they're going to leave and go somewhere else. That at least top talent will. So how do you build learning into your plan? Well, of course, you have to have lots of feedback loops with all of your key stakeholders and know who it is that you're serving and who is required to serve that end user. And then learn consistently, just like you're doing with your mission and metrics, but learning from the external sources and any customer sources or stakeholder sources, and then building that learning into your plans and budget and resource them. And discuss how you're going to address those and which ones actually need to be built into scalable systems. And then left and right, you have likable values. So companies have a brand and they want to have a connection with the people that they serve. And so this is, we've turned it into likes out there in the world, but it's really that you have a likable brand and likable people, and that can go a huge way in establishing really positive long-term relationships. But you have to balance that also with being bold and stating something that gives you competitive differentiation. So you can begin to see that all of these have a relationship across the model. This is what we call a polarities model and dualistic thinking. When we are doing that, then what we are producing actually are 12 agilities, which is very different than competencies. Competencies are about your function, and when you learn how to do something in a function, you have that experience in your resume. But it doesn't mean that you will be agile. Actually, sometimes a competency can prevent you from being agile because you think, I've done this many times, and so you keep doing the same thing. So sometimes competencies can prevent you from an agility. But we think that in today's global workplace, everyone has to think about how to stay agile all the time and continuously change with the changing environment, which is happening more rapidly every day. So this is another way of looking at the Tilt framework. If you look at the top where you have openness, inspiration, and creativity, when you have inspiration, you're basically casting a compelling vision, and that's an agility. When you're creative, you're designing inventive solutions. When you're open, you're showing a curiosity for learning, and so forth. So this is a collection of 3 agilities that are about strategic change and strategic leadership. And likewise, over here on the right, confidence turns into exuding a commanding presence, and boldness, a willingness to face risk, integrity, serving as a good example, and so on around the model. So you see that there are 3 meta strengths and 3 agilities that are in each quadrant, and they each have a different type of leadership attached to them. So people leadership is here, and thought leadership here, and results leadership here, and strategic leadership here. And then you also begin to see what happens at the 4 corners. So an outcome of showing curiosity for learning, expanding social influence, is collaboration, which is a required outcome of generativity, and also innovation. When you put creativity and confidence together, you get consistent innovations that fold upon one another. And then you have diligence and integrity result in execution, and then trust and perspective result in alignment and integration. So you begin to see how when you're able to do all of these things at once and tilt into different ones based on the context, this is what we call non-dualistic thinking. So it's both and instead of either or. And when you're doing this in all 12 character strengths and all 12 agilities, then what is produced is this concept of flow, which is a mental state of operation where we're performing an activity that we're fully immersed in and feeling energized, focused around, fully involved in it, and enjoying the process of the activity. And we have to feel challenged and that we're learning something at the same time. So the whole model is based on polarities that have been researched over 30 years. And you can see how agility operates here by kind of flowing here with me. The idea happens at inspiration, or the compelling vision that you have of the future. You go socialize that idea through connection and collaboration. Then you go figure out how to build a prototype and execute at least an MVP or an optimal first release on an idea. Then you go put some metrics around it and test it, and then you ship it to see what happens when it engages with the external environment. And this process happens over and over and happens very swiftly in a group of talented individuals who can think in non-dualistic thinking, which is an advanced form of thinking. And then when you look at all of the polarities, you can see that each one accomplishes a certain thing. So you see an infinity continuum here all of them are represented in this rapid infinity continuum that's always looping in both sides of the polarity at once. This one's called the vision polarity that connects inspiration and focus. And then you see the two agilities here that are balanced with one another. So casting a compelling vision, but also grounding it by attending to priorities. And likewise, the strategy polarity, balancing creativity and perspective. And the two agilities of designing innovative solutions and practicing good judgment as you do that. The command polarity, which is about confidence and trust at the same time. Exuding a commanding presence while building strong relationships and trust. The momentum polarity, balancing boldness with empathy, and being willing to face risk while at the same time showing emotional awareness about the unintended consequences of it. And then the social justice polarity, about integrity and likability, and including both of those, where you're expanding social influence, but also serving as a good example. So one is not at the expense of the other. And then lastly, the expertise polarity, which is about being open and diligent at the same time. So openness to learning and showing curiosity for learning, and at the same time, diligent execution for efficiency. So just a final thought, extremes can be very useful, but we don't want to camp out there. I always say that an extreme used at the right moment and in the right mode and at the right volume level can be extremely useful and get people's attention. But if we do that numerous times, we become kind of annoying. So we don't want to camp out in extremes, but we want to use them very wisely. Thank you for listening.